Hello, Miss King. My name is JStorm. Thank you, first off, you and your lawyers, for allowing me this time with you.
Yeah, it's no problem.
I've been working on a documentary the past few months, and I feel like this interview might actually be a key turning point in it. And I think I just have some questions. I feel like you can answer for me.
Yeah, no problem. I don't mind answering your questions.
First, I'd like to start from something in my notes here. Last year, your methods were different. You had a gun with a rose tucked into the wounds. You recited the same unvarying, not to be cynical of you, but almost boring poem. And each time, you left little with imagination at all. And now you seem to have switched to a knife, each victim receiving unique poems, each act more deliberate. So tell me, why repeat these acts, and how have you changed?
And no offense for thinking it's unvarying poems, because it quite is. You're right. I did it all last year. But repetition without evolution is meaningless, isn't it? My work is an ever-changing canvas. Last year, I used a gun. A crude instrument of death, bearing a single lifeless rose in the chaos of gunshot wounds, accompanied by a poem that, yes, quite frankly, lacked the finesse my art deserved. It was raw, but unrefined. This year, I chose the knife for its precision, its intimacy, you can say. I wanted to carve my signature directly into the heart, both literally and figuratively, make the act even more personal. It's about perfecting the expression of my twisted love, a love that I direct at those very cops that, captivate me.
So, you're saying that by changing your methods, you're elevating the experience for your victims, and in a way, for the cops to chase you.
Exactly, Mr. Storm. I'm not merely repeating a pattern, I'm evolving it. The acts of last year were a prelude, a rough sketch of what I intended to communicate. This year, every gesture, every carefully placed symbol and verse, it's an invitation to the cops. I want them to see that love, as twisted as it can be more than random violence. It's a message, a statement, a love letter addressed to those who relentlessly pursue me.
It seems that every part of your crime has become part of your grand narrative. A plea for the cops to accept your invitation. Is that accurate, you'd say?
Yes, precisely. See, I love the cops. Every calculated move, every change in my approach is designed to engage them. To make them see that my actions are not mere chaos, but a meticulously composed romance with fate. I've become bolder, more deliberate, and each victim now experiences a unique farewell, an intimate moment of revelation before the final act of love, a kiss of death.
Since you brought this up now, let's go with what you did this Valentine's. Can you tell us about that first encounter at Sandy Beach with Ellie? How did you craft a moment like this?
Oh, Ellie, dear Ellie. Yes, so Sandy Beach was my opening act, you could say. A place where the ocean's whispers could hide the sinister truth of what I was about to do. I invited Ellie to a quiet restaurant, promised her a date with love, some chocolate I gave her, and that brief encounter offered her what she'd never known. A taste of genuine, if twisted affection. It was a moment of vulnerability, a glimpse of love's dark potential. Right before I delivered her final, fatal kiss of death straight to her heart.
Which seemed to become almost a signature of yours, but your signature wasn't just the act itself, it was the clues left behind. The knife, the rose, the King of Hearts that you altered every one became your calling card. What did these symbolize for you?
So you see, Mr. Storm, they were my love letters to the cops, you could say. The very ones who chased me, who couldn't resist the allure of my gifts. Each symbol was a token, a mark of my affection for them. I wanted them to understand that love isn't always gentle. It's a fierce, dangerous, at times heartbreakingly brutal. In each case, I wasn't just taking a life. I was offering a final, unforgivable moment of connection, a twisted dance where love and death are intertwined. And with that King of Hearts card that I put there, kind of drew it all together with its little verse on it.
That verse on that card, almost a riddle for the authorities. Why did you feel compelled to leave these clues for them?
Well, that was my gift to the officers. Clues to what I've done, why I did it, who I was. I didn't want them to stay in the dark. I wanted them to chase me, to figure out the clues, to figure out who I was, to follow the thread of my twisted affection for them. See, I'm not merely a killer. I was an artist composing a series of tragic, romantic acts. With the end asking if they would be my Valentine to set the mood.
Another one of these tragic acts happened at the Sandy Motel with Dustin, if you remember him. The date turned deadly pretty quick, it seems. People reported they saw him go in there, and it wasn't long after you were in there, and then you left the scene. How did that particular scene reflect your vision of love?
Oh, Dustin. He was a sweet fellow. So at the motel, I set the stage for a more intimate performance. He seemed to be into dancing. I invited Dustin there by the fires, set the mood with the record player, and then invited him to dance, to share in the fleeting beauty of a moment that could only ever exist once. I wanted him to feel something. A warmth, a sense of belonging, right before I claimed him. In that brief interlude, I was demonstrating that even in the face of oblivion, one can experience a profound, if short-lived connection. It was my way of showing that love, however perverse, can be the most transformative experience, even when it ends in one final act of dance.
Yet that second card's poem seems to mirror the first in tone, yet hints at a progression in your game. What did you intend with these reoccurring Muppets?
Well, every scene was a movement of loving sympathy. The reoccurrence of the King of Hearts was my signature, a constant reminder that love and death are intertwined. With each card, I was inviting the cops to figure out my identity, and my motive, and the hint of my name.
Now, let's go to the next one, which was the post-op worker. As I heard about this, it was especially chilling to me. The man whose life depending on an artificial heart, yet the real essence of him, his true heart, you had locked away in a box that you sent to the cops. You had him deliver his own heart. What drove you to stage it that way?
That one was a true masterpiece. That post-op guy, he seemed dehydrated when I talked with him at first. I offered him a water. He went to sleep for a bit, and then And then I started setting my final stage of my act. My final gifts, I took out his heart, replaced it with the artificial one, a little timer that ticked onto his chest. And then that's when I sent him on his way to deliver my final gift to the officers. It's kind of my masterpiece of irony. Here was a man whose life, as I said, kept ticking by a machine. A stark reminder of the fragility of human emotion. By removing his real heart and delivering it to the cops by himself, I exposed the hollow nature of existence. When stripped of genuine passion, it's a cruel twist, a message that even the most sophisticated ways cannot replicate the raw, unpredictable force of true love. In my eyes, it was a declaration. The heart, in all of its messy human form, is irreplaceable, even if it only beats for a moment under my dark influence.
And then you left another poem for them as well. As they returned to Cinder, Valerie's Vineyard.
Of course, that poem was my way of challenging the authorities, daring them to piece together my narrative. I hinted at a past case, a legacy of whispers, so they'll never forget that love, however twisted, was always at the center of my crimes. And then I wanted them to figure out my last final gift and where it would be. So Valerie's vineyard was kind of pointing up in the vineyard up in the county. And a final hint to my name.
And that led them to the final act, the vineyard. You orchestrated the scene where a man, driven by his own demons, pulled the trigger and shot his girlfriend. I spoke to the officer on scene. He told me he was under the impression that there was a play happening. And then for them to see that, what was your intention there?
Yes. Lovely couple. They were definitely the final good taste of my gift. I had them drink some wine, and then they kind of fell to their own demons, especially that guy to his girlfriend, who was oh so beautiful, wasn't it? So at the vineyard, I wanted to reveal the ultimate truth to the cops. So I set the stage, made them stand there behind me as I sipped on some wine. I wanted to show the cops that love can be overwhelmed sometimes. It is not strong enough to resist the forces that seek to control it. In that moment, as the man pulled the trigger, I was demonstrating that even when love is real, it could be shattered in an instant. I was sending a message. I love the cops and I crave their acknowledgement. I really did need to hear them say, the answer to my burning question, will you be my Valentine? And when they said yes, when they accepted my invitation, it validated my entire twisted narrative. They got to see that love is twisted, brutal, kind, but cruel at the same time. And they ended with a yes, so obviously they saw it. As you see, Mr. Storm, if they had refused, well, let's just say I had contingency plans. There was a gun hidden in that water fountain behind me. I was ready to ensure that no one could ever turn me down in that way. And to know that rejection to love is just as cold as a bullet is to a head.
I'm sure it doesn't pain you to know that the woman that was shot actually did pass away on the way to the hospital. So that is another one onto your list.
Oh, I'm sure that man will learn now. Maybe next time he should love more deeper, and maybe it won't happen again.
So essentially every act, the beach, the motel, post-op, the vineyard, was all your way of crafting a love letter to the police.
Precisely, Mr. Storm. I wasn't driven by a need to cause random chaos, random violence. I was driven by passion, a dark, unyielding passion for the cops. Every gesture, every planned scene was a plea. A desperate and beautiful invitation for them to be my Valentine. I wanted them to understand that love, in its most twisted form, can be cruel, as it is memorizing.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have. But I do have an off-the-record question to ask you here. If you don't mind, that is.
Okay.
So here's the thing. There's hundreds of serial killers here in San Andreas. I've covered many. They have all their own special, unique little tricks they all like to do, their own little patterns, their own clues, everything like that. You say you do this for love. You know what people who fake love do? They only show love on Valentine's Day. You've only done this on Valentine's Day. So I'm not sure if you picked up on that at all, but that seems to be discounting everything you're saying about loving these officers, in my opinion. It seems like you have a lot more issues that are just love. You seem to be showing more hate, in my opinion. What do you have to say about that?
How dare you equate my art to these others' base brutality that they do, their mindless act of violence is. I don't kill without meaning. You might think it. I'm driven by the acts of love, not by the impulse of greed. I orchestrate love and death into a dark sympathy. Every act of mine is a calculated verse in a love letter. You say I don't have love, it's more hate, but it's not. It's love in its more darker form. It's a cold and unyielding flame inside me. I am not a mindless beast. I am the embodiment of a desire so profound that I force the world to confront its own lack of love. Well, you're right. I only do it on Valentine's Day. And you know what this taught me? What your words have taught me right now? This dance I've done? Is that the world is starved for love. It's not just a fleeting celebration once a year, but a constant force that should bind us all. You're right. I will turn once again and again to remind everyone that love is the ultimate force of love and life and death. It won't be once a year anymore. Keep returning. Maybe each holiday, maybe each day, who knows? But I need to remind people, and if you can't see that, then, well, you're nothing more than a shallow soul lost in a pit of trivial violence. Maybe you don't know how to love. Maybe I'll need to teach you that, Mr. Storm. So if you insist on comparing me to these rabid masses, understand this. I'm just not another killer. I am the hand that writes the dark ballad of existence. And that ballad demands recognition. So my truth is going to be as clear and as final as every heartbeat I silence. And mark my words, the world will learn that love is not just a seasonal thing. And as I said, I'll be back. Back more often than you dare to imagine, to remind everyone that love is both the breath of life and the kiss of death, Mr. Storm. So if you have someone you love, hold them tight, because you never know when night might bite.
Well, Miss King, I've been down this road many times. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I've dealt with so many serial killers, it doesn't even bother me, the words you say now. I will say this, though. You say I'm hollow. I don't know love. I bet you I can tell you something you probably don't know. The names of the 2 people there at the vineyard. Do you know their names? Because I do. I know Thomas. I know Olivia. I was there as he cried her name out from her car. You see, I hear these stories all the time. I know the names all the time. I hear the victims. I know their stories. I care. I have empathy. Something you seem to be lacking. You can threaten me all you want. You can threaten my loved ones all you want. You're going to rot in here for a very long time. I hope you know that. I hope you're comfortable. I have no more questions for you, ma'am. I thank you for your time. And I hope you never come out.
I thank you for your time, Mr. Storm. And you never know. As one say, love always finds a way. And so will I. You have a good night, Mr. Storm.
You as well, Miss Jane.